Coucou la communauté des French Learners. Aujourd'hui, c'est un peu spécial parce que nous allons parler en anglais. We're going to talk in English. I'm starting a new exciting. Okay, can you tell me now? Series about with learners. And this series is called the Motivation Break because I want to inspire you. I want to encourage you, to motivate you to acquire French or any other languages. But I want you to learn from the learners themselves. Because I think they are a great source of inspiration. And Kay is a dear member, so I'm really happy and thrilled to have her in this conversation. If you want more, if you want to start on your French journey, go to my website, alisayel.com, where you can become a member like Kay.
amisayel.com pour acquérir le français naturellement.
Hello, bonjour Kay, bienvenue.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Hello, everybody.
Hello. So first of all, Kay, can you tell us a bit about yourself, first of all?
Yes. So in brief, because I'm not brief, I use blef a lot because I am not brief. But in short, I would say that I'm a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. I love art. I love dancing. I love singing. And I have a wonderful husband and two beautiful little girls that speak a little bit of French now. That's pretty fun. They're so funny. When they want things, they call me Maman when they want things. Only when they're trying to be cute.
How nice.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty cute.
So you're going to tell us a bit more about how you maybe teach your girls or how you speak French to your girls. But first of all, Kay, so you are a busy mom, you have a busy life. I think that's really interesting to know for other learners who also we all have a life, and how do we fit acquiring another language in our life is very, I think, interesting, very important. How do we fit into our busy life this activity?
That's a really good question. I feel like, so for me, my kids are really young. So for people that are mothers, when your kids are from the time that, well, even before they're born, but from the time that they're born to the time that they're not tying their own shoes, they need like everything from you. It's really everything. It's very time consuming, and I don't have grandparents nearby, which makes a really big difference. So for people that raise kids and you don't have grandparents or aunties and uncles that live close that can kind of help. Also, I'm not at this age when they're so little, we don't really do babysitters. So this is not if anybody else does that, that's fine. This is just what we do. So I'm pretty busy, but I will say that regardless of if you're a mother or not, I think that it's important to have something of your own, no matter what it is. You should have something that's special of your own. It can be a painting hobby. It could be reading novels. It could be anything. For me specifically, it's really crazy that I started learning French. I mean, I think a lot of people probably remember Amelie. That's how we know it in America. I know that's not Amelie in France, but it's Audrey Tautou. She does like
yes, it's the film. In French, it's Le Fabuleux Destin d'Amélie Poulain.
Right.
But in English, I think you shortened it to Amelie.
Yeah, I think they just realized that Americans would be like, "Ooh, it's too hard to pronounce. Not gonna watch that." And it is my favorite film of all time. I love that movie. I really love it. And then there are a couple books that I read in English about French women. The one that everyone reads, French Women Don't Get Fat, which is a ridiculous book. But she has another book called, it's about the seasons that you go through as a woman. That one's really good.
Oh.
I think it's really good. I think it really captivated me because the beauty standards really everywhere. I have learned since being more French that beauty standards are pretty ridiculous in France too. I think I thought,
what is it? I don't understand, Kay. Can you?
It's kind of like. Do you know the Kardashians?
Yes, a bit.
Okay. I didn't want to do all that stuff. Like, I didn't want to do plastic surgery and wear too much makeup and try to look like 20 years old my whole life. And I think that now that I watch so much French programming that's made for French people and see so many French people, we have a tendency in other cultures to really make other cultures small. Like, we take stereotypes, which may be kind of true for some people, but we kind of take these stereotypes and we build our whole knowledge on a culture on that. And I don't know, I was really wrong about French culture, which I find really interesting.
It's true.
I spent so many hours with French and I was really wrong about it. And it's interesting speaking to other Americans about French culture. And I'm like, it's really not like that. And I'm like, there's really somebody for every opinion you have in the US. You find someone in France that has similar opinions. You can find people really, really conservative, really, really liberal, really, really feminist, really, really traditional. You find everything. So I think it's cool to have my world be bigger that way, because it helps me see that when you meet somebody, you should really take them for who they are instead of coming with a bunch of decisions about them,
So, okay, because we didn't say that, we didn't mention it, you're American, yeah? You live in the US.
Yeah.
I mean, we can tell maybe from your accent, but we want.
They're like, she's probably American. She sounds, ridiculous. It's just funny. It's funny, yeah. Anyways, so I started.
So you started learning French because your favorite movie was Amélie, Amélie Poulain.
I think so. That wasn't really. I think I was really enchanted by French women because she's so sweet. She's so sweet and she's so feisty in that movie. I just really liked her. And their love story is so sweet. It's funny because I don't know, a lot of the other French love stories that I have seen are not that way. So it's kind of funny. That's the one I gravitated to, is the one that's most like American love stories, But, I mean, I'm sure there's more of that in France. Like I said before, there's not one way to be.
But this film is very special.
Yeah.
That's right. That's true. It's a special film.
It's kind of different. It's not quite like I don't know. A lot of the French films are kind of like unrequited love, like kind of like a love that doesn't work out, or like somebody dies, or
yes.
It's really funny because when I first started taking your class, I remember at the end of the beginner class, I was like, oh, Elise, everyone dies. Like all the animals die. Tous les animaux. Animal. So more. Like, why?
Yes, a lot of stories I tell are tragic.
really respect that now, though. It's funny. Like in the beginning, I told my husband, I said, Tim, I think I'm going to quit French. And he said, why? He said, because they kill everybody. And he said, what? And I said, yeah, they just kill all the characters. And he was like, I don't know, babe. He's like, I don't know if you should stick with that. That sounds highly negative. And then now I respect it so much because I would say before I learned French, I was really much more scared of everything. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that in America, I have to say this with a disclaimer. I'm not saying all Americans. I know some Americans love horror stories, whatever. But I know a lot of Americans like me too. We are kind of always on high alert because there's so much sensationalism in the news and like everything's a tragedy, but like really scary tragedies, not like a story. I think the stories for children kind of prepare them for the hardships in life, you know?
Exactly.
And I didn't see it like that before. And now I see that it does, because it's funny. I have like a part of my brain that I can go to that doesn't get as scared, that can kind of mellow things out and kind of be more even. Also, I like to watch French news more than I like to watch American news. So I find it out about American news from French news. Because the French reporters aren't scary. They just are so flat.
Yeah, this is
When
the
they share
tone.
the news, they just share the news. So then you're like, oh, that's horrible. And then you go on with your day.
They're less dramatic, yeah, I guess.
Yes.
Oh, but I love it, Kay, because you are showing that you are more than just learning a language. You are more than just learning new words. With French, you have also opened your mind to another way of thinking, another culture, and that's what is acquiring another language is all about. Yeah, it's not just a list of words. So that's really.
I think the list of words can help.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, for my language learning, it's kind of surprising how the acquisition process kind of works, because it kind of seems like you're doing nothing for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, you just know what to say. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you just kind of start saying things. And some of the things are kind of wrong. That happens. Some things are kind of wrong. But it's incredible to be understood in a different language. It feels like you're flying. It really does. It feels so liberating, because you don't have the same brain pathways. Like for English, I have all these brain pathways like, oh, I better not say that because that's a little bit too blunt, or I better not say that because it's probably funny for people to hear that it's probably too blunt. I used to be very blunt, so I have calmed down.
But Kay, how did you start? Can you tell us a bit about your journey? So you started learning French also because you were at home and you wanted to do something, yeah?
Well, yeah.
And what did you do first? Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
Well, I found out about Stephen Krashen and this method. So I think I decided I wanted to learn French. And I was like, I'm really, really addicted to YouTube. So the problem, I really like YouTube, but I learned a lot of French from YouTube. And I follow a lot of French YouTubers. So I'll get into that because there's like a list. But I would say I would say that I looked up I saw Jeff Brown's video, How to Acquire Any Language, Not Learn It.
It's a great video.
I cried and cried and cried because Jeff, like, he becomes the language. Jeff really wants to be part of the culture when he learns a language. And I was so inspired by that. It just touched me on such a deep spot. So then I was like, oh, well, Jeff speaks French. Maybe Jeff teaches French, but Jeff teaches Spanish. So he kind of really specializes in Spanish. So I did a YouTube search. And at the time, you were the only one who came up for that kind of learning. And I was so lucky to
Ah.
find you.
So what
Because
did you type in the search box, Kay? You were looking for
I think
comprehensible input,
I think
or?
I looked up comprehensible input, and I think I also might have searched um, natural
Okay.
language acquisition, because that's another. I learned that Benico Mason and Stephen Krashen's methods were really far superior, and so I kind of my personality is, I get pretty myopic. Like I get pretty focused, hyper focused on one thing at a time. And so I'm all in when I do something. It's kind
That's
of,
great.
it is what it is. So I tend to get really good at something at a time. So I hyper focus on one thing. So I found you and I watched a couple of your videos and I was like, all right, I'm like, I feel like if I'm going to do this, I should probably just go all in. So I joined your community December 2020. And then I went all through the baby stage. And the first time I went through it, I blew through it. So I totally listened to what you said. And I just tried to get the gist, which was really easy. I knew, like, I was like, okay, I get the story. I didn't know what all the individual words meant. But as time went on, I started to know individual words and I started to kind of say like certain words. I would say like, I really liked and still like a lot. I like it when in the videos you do like, sorry, I say like a lot. I'm American. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Okay. In French, we say genre.
Yeah.
Genre.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that, friends. Okay, so I went through just to get the gist. And then you were offering an Express Fluency class. And if anybody knows me in the community, I always think I can do everything. Like, it's just my personality. I'm like, I can do it. I'll do it. Whatever. If it can be done, I'll do it. So I told Alice, I think I finished the baby stage. I think I'm ready for your intermediate class. And Alice was like, should take the beginner class, which I'm really glad she said that because I was not ready for the intermediate class yet. I took the beginner class and it was amazing. You know, you say words to yourself, but there's something about, nobody talks about this. I think I've heard Luca Lampariello talk about this before.
Who is also a polyglot.
Yeah, he's a polyglot. He speaks, I think 13, I might be butchering, it might be 15 languages. It's a lot of languages.
Yeah.
And very well, to a very high level. His English, his English so inspires me. He has never been to the United States.
Yes.
And I knew, like, in my heart, because I have the personality I do, I knew if Luca can learn a language like he speaks English, because he really does speak like he's from Chicago. Every once in a while, you'll hear, oh, he's not American. It's so rare. It's very rare that you'll catch him in something that he says where the pronunciation is that, oh, that's not American. But for the most part, he sounds American. He uses phrases and idioms that are very American. I can tell he watches American programming. He understands. Even the way he motivates is very American. I can tell he follows a lot of motivational speakers that are American. I mean, it's incredible. And I thought, wow, I could become that fluent in a language and never go there. But the thing that connected me to Luca so much is that to me, he is American. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? Like this man who's never been to America before, I would consider him like, he could be like a cousin, or he could be like a friend, or he could be, to me, that connection that you can get from someone from just aligning with them. I thought, I want that in a language. But then, of course, I didn't want it in just one language. I want it in French and in Korean and also in Spanish and maybe Italian, you know. So it's go big or go home always for me because, you know, super American.
So you started, you said you became a member on my site. You did the baby stage. So there are 31 sessions on the baby stage to acquire the basics. But you were just watching the videos and trying to get the gist.
Yeah. So then after that, I went through it a second time. And the second time I did it differently. I took notes. I wrote out the vocabulary lists. I drew all the pictures. And
so
then,
you were more active in your...
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So
But
what
why
I will
did
say,
you did it because you said you went to my Express Fluency beginner class and then you decided to do the baby stage again?
no, I did the baby stage twice before I did your Express Fluency class.
Okay.
So I was really understanding a lot before the Express Fluency, excuse me, tongue twister beginner class. And then I remember the first lesson, I thought, man, I understood everything. I knew all the words. And as I think maybe 3 or 4 lessons in, it jumped to like intermediate. Like that's what happens with like the beginner stage. It's incredible because what I have found from the stories, this is the thing I love so much about story learning. The content is important, but what is most important about the learning is what you notice. Because what you notice is where you are. So I'm trying to give a good example, but for some people, when they're first watching a video, they may notice, oh, every time she says or every time she says meh, it's like it's and or but, and you learn those things because they're so frequent, you know. And then as you go, you're starting to learn more difficult adjectives, verb conjugations. I think the verb conjugation thing really kind of took me a while because I kept thinking in my brain, well, maybe if I look at grammar tables, maybe that will really help me. The problem is it does help when you're typing. It doesn't help, or writing, sorry, typing because we're in the modern age, but you're writing something. It's not that helpful when you're speaking. You've either acquired the word or you haven't. And that's the thing that I find really interesting is even for people that are learning, I think, the traditional way, they have found some way to acquire the language somehow. They're they're reading books, they're watching movies, they're speaking with others. For me, I think the 2 things that have been the most important for me, no, 3 things that have been most important for me acquiring the language is 1, noticing what I notice and making sure that I notice every time I notice it, because all the words that you notice are repeated a million times a day in French. So creating opportunities where you're going to hear that word again. So it could be re-listening. I think there's a huge value in repeating. So a lot of things I do with Alice's recordings, they're pretty fun because it's fun to go back and see what I said and what the responses were. Because with video, one thing that can be difficult, and even actually I've found in real life conversations, when you're so busy thinking about what you're going to say or creating things, and that's even in your own language, it can be hard to fully pay attention to someone else's responses. So it's nice to go back and have video, because I can go back and watch the video and be like, oh, you know, she found this really interesting, or the way that I worded this was amusing in French, and I can kind of figure it out. Or sometimes it's like, oh, that didn't fly very well. That might have been a little bit annoying. Like, maybe don't do that again. It's just kind of fun to have the human.
Okay, you mean the recordings,
the recorded
of
class,
the
and
live
even
classes, on
the live
Express
classes. That
Fluency.
could be the Zoom Express Fluency classes. I also go back and rewatch our direct meetings for the community. Those are really, really fun because we have the same people over and over again. So you get to know people. It is sad when people miss, because you have your friends that you want to see every time. I say this. I really like, it's just fun to hear other people's perspectives and see their sense of humor, because they're from different countries.
Yes.
And it's interesting to learn about other countries. It's kind of made me want to learn like Portuguese. Like I really want to learn Portuguese.
Because they are Brazilian. We have people from Brazil. It's true that we have an international community, and we have managed to build quite a caring community. So when we meet, we see the same faces. It's true. It's really nice.
It's really fun, and it's nice. You know, people encourage you, and they'll tell you things like when they notice that your French has improved, because it's, you know, it's language. It's just exploding all the time. It's just always getting better. So I'm really impressed with a lot of the language learners, and I have like my, you know, when I first I don't know if I'll say his nickname. When I first started, we had a Portuguese member, Guy, and he speaks really good French. He speaks Portuguese, and I think they have kind of a leg up on us English speakers because their language is a little bit closer. It's a little closer to French.
Yes.
But I was so impressed by that. I said, oh, wow, you know, his accent is so good. Like, I should really work on mine. And it really inspired me to work on it. But I want to, like, I know some people hear what Stephen Krashen says about the club membership and the accent. And I would offer this suggestion: become part of the club, and then your accent will get better.
Yes. Guilherme, if you're listening, drop a comment because you inspired, you boosted Kay to improve on the pronunciation. That's so great. Yeah. So we motivate each other. That's the goal of the community, really, the role of the community. So when Kay, I'm interested in your routine also, because you are a busy mom. So you said you were you started to work more actively on each session of the baby stage.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you do it every day? What was your routine? How did you find the time with your children?
Well, it means doing so all of my active learning I have to do when they're not awake, because they're very demanding. I love them if they ever see this.
So you wake up earlier?
Really early. So usually between 5 and 6 in the morning. And then so this is pre-summer. So when I first started, I would wake up usually around 5:30 in the morning. And then I would study French for 2 to 2.5 hours. And I spent a lot of time. So I think, to be completely honest, I don't know that I would have dedicated so much time if it hadn't happened during like the heart of COVID. Like it was like COVID, and people had all different responses to COVID. My response to COVID was, if I'm going to be home all the time and you can't even see anybody, you couldn't go anywhere, I think it was really helpful to have like a friend. I remember you have a really good video. Maybe if I can find it, I'll link it in the comments of this video, but there's a really good video where it's in English, where Alice tells everybody about how she had a friend in Spain and how she learned Spanish. And I just bawled. I just cried so hard. And I think I was so like hungry for a friend during COVID. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just really wanted connection when I'm really honest about it. And the community and the comment section and doing the Zoom classes gave me a sense of community during a time where there wasn't a lot of community. So I did a lot of that. My process was, I knew that reading was really important. I want to mention this because it's really important. There is one class on YouTube that is free from Dylan. She's from Belgium, and she lives in Canada, and she teaches European French. So it's very good French. If anybody out there thinks that there's only good French in France, it's not true. It's good French everywhere. But she teaches a class on how to read French, and it's fantastic. It is a fantastic course. And I would say anybody she doesn't teach comprehensible input. She does have things that end up being comprehensible input. She's more of a grammar teacher. But she's a wonderful grammar teacher. One thing I like to use Dylan for is I like to use her YouTube channel as a backup. So what I do is I'll watch Alice's videos. I'll acquire the French the natural way, the way kids do. And then after I've already acquired it, then I'll go learn the grammar afterwards. I focus on the order. So I just don't think learning verb conjugations of verbs I don't know make a lot of sense. So I try to already have a mental capacity for something. Or some of the explanations are really good for like some things that I'm tripped up on, that I know that this is something I need to know, and you've noticed it a lot, but you're not really quite understanding the code of the language in that spot. Then it's kind of nice to look up the grammar for one thing, but I don't study grammar. I don't do that. I think I like it to think of it as I take grammar breaks. So it's comprehensible input and then grammar breaks. And the grammar breaks are more for adding to my input. It's not the main source of input. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it totally makes sense. And it's so good that you are saying that, because some people think that I am anti-grammar.
No.
I am not.
It's the order.
It's just, it's the order, exactly. It's just that I think that first, like any children, you need to acquire it naturally. But of course, as adults, we like to notice things. As you said, we like to make connections with our mother tongue, and we also like to know sometimes, why is that sentence built that way? Why is it different? We want to, of course, we are adults, so we are thinking about the language also. We are curious. So here, as you said, I love grammar breaks. That's exactly, you sometimes need a grammar break. You need an explanation on something, or you just want to practice how a sentence is built, and that's fine. But I don't think that's how that your brain, but I think that your brain, as you also believe it, that your brain needs also all this input.
You need like a framework. Like as you have all these connections from different stories, you know, like, and it's crazy too, because I have so a lot of the polyglots do something called chunking, where they learn entire phrases. When you do comprehensible input through stories, you get natural chunking. So like, for instance, one of my favorite stories is Le Petit Grenouille from your baby stage. And he says, Bon pour toi, pas pour moi. And it's always right there. I can say it so quickly because I have the story. And it's just kind of nice to have it. The other person I like to use for grammar breaks is Damon Dominique. He's American, which is kind of nice because he's close to my age and his grammar explanations really make sense to me. So when I hear him explain something, I'm like, got it. And then I don't need to hear it again. I'm like, I already have it. I might still need to acquire a little bit more, but I actually bought his course and I don't do it the way that it's intended to do. Like I don't do the grammar exercises. What I like to do though, is I'll go through and kind of watch some of the videos, only the videos that I already know the structures. So like I said, I do it as a grammar break. If I already know the structure, then I'll go and watch it. And he has little quizzes and I like to take the quizzes too, to kind of see where I'm at in my understanding. It's kind of nice, but nobody's grading it. He doesn't get the quiz results. There's no stress for me. I can take it over as many times as I want. No results get reported to anybody. There's no stress. So it's different than going to grammar school where you're getting quizzed or tested and you're really stressed out, or you're studying just for a test. I'm not really studying for a test. I'm just seeing what I've acquired so far. So that's kind of nice.
We will put all these links in the description because I'm sure, but I'm sure people who are watching us now or are listening to us, because it will also be available as a podcast. They will be interested. They will want to go and see all those wonderful links you are sharing with us. That's really
Yeah.
a gold mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I have learned, I've acquired probably, to be fair, 90 to 95% of my French from Alice. I mean, to be totally fair, because I've watched most of your videos. I've gone to lots of classes. After I did the beginner class, then the next one I did the beginner class and the intermediate class in tandem, which was really
Yes.
good. I really liked doing that.
Yeah.
At the time, the intermediate class was a little bit challenging for me, but I could still go with it. I think it's important for me personally to make sure that you're always kind of a little bit uncomfortable sometimes with the language, to really push yourself to grow. So I think like right now, oh, I don't have it with me. I'm reading a French reader. I read a lot of French readers too, but I'm reading a French reader that is really easy. And I think it's good to read easy material too and watch easy videos also, even when you're doing the harder things, because they build confidence. Sometimes when, you have to kind of get comfortable with not understanding a lot sometimes, or putting the pieces together. It's nice to watch videos because you have the image, you have body language, to a certain extent. You have like the face and the shoulders and things. You can see people's body language a little bit. We'll say that with French, I think you almost have to acquire it, because it's hard to explain. Like, the language really gives away the culture a lot. And I'm not saying this as like, it's, the written language is really lovely. It's very beautiful. It's like an art form in its own. It's so pretty. But it's just not the language. It's like different,
Yes.
It's kind of like in English, we do it too. I think more so in French, but in English, when I speak, I sound kind of rough. It's a lot of slang, a lot of filler words, a lot of filler sounds. And in written language, when I'm writing a form document, it's very formal, and you have to learn that at school. So when you're reading the books, I think it's great because it gives you a really good mental framework. I know for myself personally, the way my brain works is when I see the words, there's a picture that I always kind of have in my head where I can see the written word. So it's just really important because there's liaison, and then there's also like the, you don't pronounce the plural. Like it's important to kind of already know the language. I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of have to know a few ways, because if you don't, I don't know, if you don't know how it sounds, you will never know what people are speaking about. And then if you don't acquire the conjugation, people are very confused who you're talking about, because you can be talking about a group of people, one person. It's a little challenging. The good news, though, that I have found, that even if you do make those mistakes, if you acquire the language, you will acquire enough language to move around that, which is really fun. You can still explain yourself, which is great. I don't know.
Yeah. This is called circumlocution. When you don't know a word and you try to explain it, yeah?
Yeah, you can kind of like,
Circumlocution, yeah?
yeah, you can kind of explain around it. Like, say that you know like avion, but you don't know helicopter.
Yes.
You can say, oh, it's like an airplane. Oh, it has a propeller. You can do a motion.
Exactly.
People know what you're saying, and you can just figure it out. And then you'll have that new word, and you can use it next time. But
That's very important. That's very important. And what you are saying now are so many, there are so many great tips, Kay, many great suggestions, and about your own experience. This is great. I love it. So you said you spent like 2 hours and a half, 2 hours a day, daily on French.
So I did that. And then
But that's amazing.
Yeah, I spent
Well
a lot of
done.
time. that because I wasn't working very smart. So I don't know that I would recommend that to everyone. The reason why I say that is I think our brains can only really acquire really well about 25 to 30 minutes at a time. I read a really good book recently called Limitless. It's by an American who talks about how you can speed read and how you can acquire more things quickly. And he basically says that you need to take a break. And I just sat there and I was like driven. I just did it, for 2 hours.
I'm amazed.
I sat there and straight through. But what happens is that your acquisition falls off because your brain gets tired for being so hyper focused. So I would burn out every week because I learned that way. So every week I would burn out. Every Sunday I would say, oh, I hate French. And then every Sunday I would go and I would look at Luca Lampariello, or like I would look at Steve Kaufman, or I would look at Matt versus Japan, or all these people that speak foreign languages that have been successful, and I would watch their videos and be inspired and get the fire back in me again. And then on Monday I would start again. So
that's another great tip, Kay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's great. Okay. When you feel down, watch a polyglot, watch someone who inspires you to continue to move on. I love Steve Kaufman. Yeah. I love Lucas, and also Holly Richards. Yes, Ollie Richards.
Love Ollie Richards. Yeah, he's really great
too.
Ollie has a really, really good advice that I want to make sure I talk about because it's really important. I think comparison is the thief of joy, and you have to be so careful about comparing yourself to other learners because some people will learn really, really quickly or have much better accents or whatever. And I have found that you have to even be careful about comparing yourself to yourself. Because for me, I'll have a really good day where my French is just on. Like I spoke French all day to my kids. I went to the store. They understood it. My kids understood everything I said. One time I spoke French at the playground and some guy came up to me and started speaking French to me. And I was like, I was scared so much. I was so scared I froze. Next time I won't do that. Next time I'll take a deep breath, maybe do a little bit of this and do respire a little bit, try to speak to him. But I was really scared, but my French was, it was understandable. I think that's the most important thing is when you learn any language, it's not so important that you completely don't have an accent, but it is important that other people understand you because that's kind of the point, So with French, I mean, I think French, the pronunciation might be more important than some other languages because you get it wrong, you get it really wrong.
It depends. Really I would say with English too, for me too, sometimes there are some words that are very difficult. For example, I still have issues with a bank, the bank where you put your money, not the, So you see, I still have some issues with that word.
But we Americans, though, we love your issues with the word. Please don't lose your issues with the word. I think it's hard for French people to lose their accent because they're so encouraged to keep it.
Yeah, because I also feel so French, like Stephen Krashen says, I feel so French that I have a hard time losing it, losing my French accent. But yeah, you are saying so many good things, Kay. This is great. I love it. Yeah, don't compare yourself. And that's really hard especially when you're in a class, a group class. Yeah, not an individual class. Sometimes you start to compare yourself with other students in the class. Oh, this student speaks French so well, I'm never gonna do it. And you should really not compare yourself because this is more harm than good, really.
And it can also cause performance anxiety. So for myself, I know I'll just be vulnerable and tell. There have been a couple times where I've compared myself to other French learners that spoke better French, and then later I passed them in my French, or perceived past them. Who knows? You know, but in my mind, I got at least to their level where I felt like, oh, I don't know that they're so much better anymore. I think the one that's hardest to get over is comparing yourself to yourself, though, because you have a really good day in French, and then the next day, if you're really stressed out, it can really block your language. I mean, it can do it in your mother tongue too. You're just more forgiving of yourself. I will say the best thing that ever happened to me in French class, and Alice knows this one, the best thing that ever happened is there was one time when Alice had a translation of an English word, and it was a little off. I think in French it was supposed to be tackle, and I think she put giggle, and I said heckle. Like I gave the wrong word. That was the best thing that ever happened to me in French class, because I thought, this is amazing. I make mistakes in English and I speak really great English. You know, I'm really proud of my English because I did like college level English in like high school. So I've been really proud of my English and my writing skills and everything. And I thought I made kind of a big mistake, like a pretty easy thing for people to know. It's in like children's books. Like, why did I not know that word? But in that moment, I just shrugged it off. I thought, well, that's weird. And I didn't care. And I thought, if I do that every time I make a mistake in French, then that would be really good if I just kind of let it go. And so I think people forget how many times we give a pass in our own language. I often hear, I watch YouTubers that are American YouTubers and that make a ton of grammatical mistakes. Sometimes more than usually more than foreigners even. They don't use "you are" correct. The conjugation's wrong. They'll say "your" instead of "your," and it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of not that big of a mistake because you know what they're saying, but in writing, it kind of looks pretty poor. And I always forgive it. I just don't care. I just forgive it. You just care about the message. I think when we're learning a language, the most important thing to remember is that it's a creative process. We have all these ideas and this energy in our mind that we're trying to share with somebody. And as long as the message gets across, you have done it well. As long as you can get them the message. I think I'm a lot more relaxed in what I would consider fluency. I would consider myself pretty fluent in French now. I realize that some people would not, but I would say that I am fluent in French. I would say that I have achieved fluency. Of course, there's tons of room to grow. I was a little, so going into summer now. So summertime, I did your intensive with you, which was really good because at that time I took on a really big project in my bedroom. I painted all the furniture and I painted my walls, and it all started from a blanket I bought. It was ridiculous, but I won't go into that story. So I took her intensive, which was really good because they kept me doing French every day. I had to go meet for class and see her every day. And after that, I had like a long break where I was still working on my bedroom. And so every day I would make sure to do something in French. I would listen to a song and watch a video. I would watch the news. I would listen to the podcast. When I was painting, I listened to the podcast that you did with your cousin Vincent, like more than 4 times. I said 4 times the day we were in class. It's been more than 4 times. That one really, really made me laugh a lot. I literally died. It was so funny. Well, because he's just, it's fun to hear. It's nice to hear that, Americans, I have to be careful. Some Americans have a perspective that French people don't like Americans. And it's nice to hear that that's not always true. He spoke very highly of the Texans. I was really impressed by that. And I was really impressed. It's funny. His story about the car and not needing a car in Paris, but then it's absolutely necessary in the US, which is so through. It's so big here. Everything takes
Yes,
forever to get
of
to.
course.
So, and there's no metro, so you have to like, you have to go somehow. So, anyways, I'm
So
sure
you
it's still
kept
that
you
way.
kept with your
Yeah,
French,
yeah. So I kept with my French.
although you were very busy.
I was very busy. So every day I did something to kind of just make sure that I heard it.
Mm.
The other thing that I have done for quite a while now is my daughters have very simple children's books, really simple books. Some of them are board books that are really easy, where each page is like a sentence, you know? And then I would open the book and show them the pictures and translate it in French. So I would translate each page in French and go along that way. I also have, we do Bible stories in the morning. And so I have a book where I have the English and then I bought the French version. So it's kind of nice because it makes it a bilingual book. That's a good idea for anybody who wants to do, you want to read books that are maybe above your level. The Bible stories are high intermediate. Like you have to, just because it's a children's book doesn't mean it's easy.
Exactly.
It can be very difficult because the kids have acquired a lot of like all the language almost, and their parents are reading them the stories, so they're not necessarily reading the stories, so they can read at a much higher level. But I've acquired a lot from those books because even when I just read the French and I don't see the English, I know all those stories by heart from my childhood. So that's really interesting. I find one of my most interesting things about acquiring French is that being religious in different countries is different. It's so awesome. It's really awesome to see that, like just how different it is. I'm not going to go into that because I know some people probably don't care, but yeah, it's really neat because I would consider myself more relaxed than most Americans, but it's fun to see that that's okay. So yeah. But
okay, that's really, you're giving great tips to learners about bilingual books, about having a routine every day. I mean, I'm amazed because you're really consistent, Kay. You're really good. And now you considered you reach fluency, so we can
I
say
would consider it.
"Youpee!"
Yeah, I would consider it fluency. I think like, you know, I don't have every verb, but I would consider it fluency because I feel confident that if I went to France today, that I could get around by myself, that I could speak with people and understand what they're saying, even fast French, because I watch YouTube bloggers that are not language teachers. You know, that's another tip is watch people that are not language teachers and you won't understand everything, but my tip is to train your ear to not get stressed out. So just listen to it, take deep breaths, don't get stressed out. A lot of times when it seems like they're speaking really quickly, they're actually thinking, they're saying, Jean. Like it's a lot of like filler words. So if you have already acquired a lot of the language, you can put the pieces together and you might not understand every word as they're saying it. But when they're done speaking, you have put a picture together of what they said, and that is fluency. You have like a child's working fluency. So,
exactly. I think that's very important what you said, to be relaxed and not to get stressed out when you don't understand everything. Because that's what happens when you get to another country. You might not understand everything, but you have to stay relaxed and focused and try to get the gist to then communicate. So it's okay. And even in your mother tongue, sometimes you might not understand everything in a conversation. It happens to me, you know, and it's okay. You have to stay relaxed and not to be anxious about that.
at this point in my journey, I think I was a little down in July because my plan at the beginning of the year, January 1st, I had a plan. It was like, okay, 6 months for French, Then at the 6-month part, I'm going to add Korean, and Korean's going to be my main language, and then I will just kind of fill in with French. And the next year was going to be dedicated totally to Spanish. That was my plan.
Wow.
I now realize that while that might work for some people, I think that's a little too stressful. And why I say that is I would consider myself fluent in French now. I actually tell people that I'm fluent in French. I tell all my family members that I am. When people ask me how to say things in French, I pretty much always know how, unless it's some odd word, like they ask me how to say octopus or something. I'm like, I don't know how to say octopus, you know? I don't even feel bad about saying that. I'm like, I don't know how to say octopus in French yet, but I can find out for you and we can make a sentence right now. Anyways, but for the most part, I can say whatever. And I don't know. I think that I need to spend a little bit more time with French. So I've listened to some polyglots that have some really good advice to get to like B2, like get to like B2 level before switching to another one. I remember the highest time I ever had in French is when it passed my Korean. So Korean was my first language. And then when I was 3 years old, my parents cut off all Korean, and then I only spoke English because I'm not going to tell my age. But back then, there was a very popular belief that you couldn't learn 2 languages to the same fluency. So that's what their belief system was at the time. So they cut off my Korean, which is a shame. It's so sad. Because I learned Korean from such a young age, when I make the sounds, they sound very correct because I lived there a bunch, because I spoke the language with locals, my mom, you know, all this stuff. But where was I going with this? When my French passed my Korean, I was shocked. I remember, so my biggest tool of all is definitely speak French in the shower. Definitely wear an earbud, and like, this is a Luca tip. Definitely wear an earbud and put a phone in your pocket and just speak walking down the street. Because if you can speak French walking down the street, pretending you're on a telephone call, you can speak in any situation, because that's pretty embarrassing. I mean,
that's a good tip.
I've had entire conversations with Alice. I usually pretend I'm speaking to Alice because she's the most comfortable for me to speak to, understandably, because I spent most of my time speaking with her. But I have done that. The shower one is really good. There's something about when you're in a shower, you're really relaxed. Unlike, or in a bath, if you're a bath person, you're much more relaxed than you are in most forms during the day. And so typically in the shower, I'll get the shower and I'll have like a heated discussion over something, or I'll like say, you know, whatever, or I'll tell somebody about how I learned. I've spoken a lot about how I learned French because a few months ago it was my plan. I decided in my head, someday Alice is going to ask me to do an interview totally in French, and I need to be ready. So I've been practicing for it. So actually, I have about 15 minutes worth of French in a row, like in a material that I can speak on in French.
So this is our next interview, okay? Yeah. Yes.
I think next year, I've thought in my head, I think next year, when I reach that level that I think is where I probably will, you know, it sounds bad to say it, but you never stop learning a language. But when you listen to the polyglots, and I know in my heart, there's a point where you're kind of okay with where you're at. Not there yet. I would consider myself fluent. I'm not at the point where I feel like it's, you know, it's not good enough for me. I think it's good enough for others to understand me, but it's not good enough where I could speak to somebody and have a compelling conversation for 2 hours.
Okay.
Like I am not at that level yet. I think at some point I would get tired, you know, 30 minutes, an hour, I probably just get really tired in French.
But yes, let's meet for in Post Cafe, because I'm also going to continue this series. I have some other people lined up for to continue the series. And yes, you are invited. You are welcome, Kay.
Let's put it out into the universe. It's going to happen.
But thank you so much, Kay, for your time. We've talked a lot, and I'm sure it's your tips, your journey. Sharing your journey is very helpful for all the community members, the learners out there. And I'm also calling for more people, if whether you are a member of the French learners community on anisayel.com like Kay, whether you are watching you are subscribed to my channel, you are watching my videos, and you are learning, you are acquiring French from those resources. And you want to share, like Kay, your journey with your ups and downs. You've been very honest, Kay, and I'm so grateful. Please leave a comment and please contact me so we can have an interview, because I think that these kinds of interviews are the most inspiring and encouraging for other learners. We saw, Kay, that no, it's not consistent. It can't be, because we are human beings. We have a life. We have ups and downs. It's a journey, really. And the reward is the journey, I think. Right? It's an adventure. And you've learned also things more than the French language, right? You've learned how to be more relaxed. You've learned so many things from this journey. This is really inspiring.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Can I share just one more thing?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
I just want to remind everyone, like what has helped me the most is to notice what I notice, because you will see it everywhere. It's something, there's actually some psychological term for it that I do not know anymore, but it's kind of like
noticing, right?
Noticing things. It's like, so say that you see a butterfly, and then the butterfly is important to you. You see butterflies everywhere. So in French, when you're learning the language, I remember for a while I didn't know what assez meant for like a really, really long time. I just never knew, and I kind of looked it up a bunch of times. That's the other thing. Looking up words is, you can do it. You probably won't acquire. I don't know what it is about looking up words. I always do it. I always look up the words and then I don't learn it.
Yeah, the same for me, exactly the same.
Crazy. If I write it, then I am more, if I write it and I write it in a sentence, I can acquire it that way. But if I just look it up on like Google Translate or on some sort of a dictionary, I'll never remember it, because I think my brain doesn't find that interesting to find a dictionary definition. Anyways, when you see things, you'll see it everywhere. And I started seeing it everywhere I went, people were saying assez bien, assez bien, assez bien, like everywhere. And then I was like, oh, I get it now. I know what that means now in this context. And then you acquire a little bit more. Or I know for a while I was a little bit confused with like il y a, like sometimes it's a reference to time. And it's not like there is or there are. It's kind of like a reference to time, like there was such and such years in the past. And it's just kind of, once I noticed that, I saw it everywhere, people using it. So when you learn basic structures, pay attention when you see them in other places, because it will help your brain cement it in your brain. The other thing I will say, it's kind of a Joseph Campbell mentality, but to follow your bliss. And what I mean by follow your bliss is follow your joy, because for things to be comprehensive, for you to acquire the language, it has to be compelling. So you have to have joy in finding the language. You have to have like happiness, and it has to be, you have to have the energy of joy, and then it comes really fast. But this past summer, I've had a time where it's been a little bit more stressful, and there have been more busyness with people are getting together again and everything. And so I've made sure to do something every day that brings me joy, that's a little bit easier on me. but you know, it's going to start getting colder, and then I can go back to being a little bit more regimented. And so I've already planned, you know, it's not that I took the summer completely off, but I think following your bliss and doing the thing that excites you the most in the language is helpful.
Wow. This is the perfect way to end this conversation. I love it. Follow your joy. Yeah. Follow what excites you, what is joyful to you. This is perfect, Kay. Thank you so much. Merci du fond du cœur, Kay. I have to say that Kay is one of the most active members in the community. So I want to really thank you du fond du cœur. And please leave a comment if you also want to share your journey on the motivation break, or leave a comment if you relate to what Kay has shared. How is your French journey? What are your tips? Have you had ups and downs? Share, please. And I'm sure Kay is also going to read your comments and going to reply because she's so active. Thank you, Kay. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt. Au revoir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.